speaking to a friend recently who said, work isn't going really great at the moment. And I said, what's going on? Oh, well, there's all the reshuffling and they're just, I'm not happy there anymore. I think I'm going to look for another job. And she'd been in this organisation for a long time. It would appear that the new manager has taken over and is just doing, things that doesn't suit most of the staff. And so she was thinking, I'm really unhappy, I want to move on. So we had a talk about that. And, obviously, while she is essentially not doing too badly there, she was just thinking, oh, I want to leave because it's just not the place it used to be. So we talked about, what about other things? How's your family? How's, mum? How's your siblings? And she said, yeah, and they're doing great. And so for me, I said, it's really a matter for you. You could do the looking for work thing. But right now, for me, as long as my family are okay, that's what matters to me. The career, of course, is also important and has always been. But if my family are happy, then I'm happy. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying by any means that justifies staying in a career path that's not working for you or in an organisation that's not working for you. But the point she took from that, and she said it to me when she saw me the next time, was, oh my God, that really helped me in that moment, because I went home and reassessed the situation and I realised actually it wasn't too bad. I could stay for a bit and then just see what happened after the new manager had done their reshuffling, and just see, because as long as my husband and my 2 children were fine,
then you're okay.
She said that was fine for her. So I think it's worth highlighting that. So although it is a direct doing your own self a good deed because they're an extension of you, it's also just looking out for them and seeing that's...
So you're spreading the love and making sure everyone within this... And love all around, right?
Yeah.
So when you give it finds its way back to you.
Yeah.
So I think, that's one of the key messages in here with what you've described. Yeah. Thank you. That's amazing. That's why the love keeps coming back to you, Jackie.
Thank you. That's so
because you're very intentional about the love that you've described it already. You've said it yourself.
And so are you, Sally, and so are you. That's why you have so many, not just your own family members who love you because you can't do enough for them, but also your friends. You have so many friendship circles and so many friends. And I think that's what happens when you give out the love.
Yeah, I think so. I do, So I have been exploring a little bit more about my various, I think we talked about this over lunch as well, the various friendship circles and what, taking value from each one. So I think what Jacqueline and I had decided that friendships are, my friendships, and I think similar to Jacqueline's friendships, are quite dynamic, quite diverse. But what we tend to do is take the value from each one. So understanding that people are not perfect, but when you nurture the good in somebody, brings out the best in them actually.
It does,
So they give you their best and you receive that best, and you in turn are blessed for it. So you're better by the love that they're showing you, and then everyone is all happy and we have this chain of love and the world is all perfect.
Well, in your own world.
Yes,
and
of course.
Of course, that doesn't mean that if you're sort of being present and showing up in that relationship and that's being abused or taken advantage of, you must continue to show up.
No, boundaries, right?
You do, and I always believe in boundaries, because once you've seen that there is a certain manipulation that's going on, then I feel that it's self-preservation for you to have boundaries, very firm boundaries. Still be a loving person. Do not allow any sort of experiences that are negative to take away that natural sense of being a loving person, that she knows who you are, but have firm boundaries.
So you can't change yourself, can you? But you can just, adjust the situation to suit. And not just when they're manipulative tendencies. There's also where the energies clash. Do you know, I was giving you an example of the lunch of such and such a person where I felt like our energies were slightly contradictory and might end up in a space where it wouldn't work. So under those circumstances, I think it's okay to understand that, okay, maybe this person doesn't quite fit into any of the friendship boxes that have been created, and that's actually okay. So you can still be friends, but
you don't have to then show up or nurture that friendship as much as you probably would have done in the past, because it's not really sort of on the same wavelength that you would like it to be. So you can still be loving whenever you meet.
Or whenever. I'd like to describe it as blowing kisses from across the road.
That's a good way. That's very good, actually. I'll borrow that sounding timing. Yes, I like that one.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
So, Jacqueline, you've thrown around some very big words.
What words have I thrown around?
Confidence and strength. And love language, and I think I chipped in energy, and family and foundation and core. You know, the very interesting thing is, as big and as powerful as these words are, you are obviously big and powerful, and yet very gentle.
Wow.
So you're quite soft-spoken.
That's very kind.
And very gentle.
Yes, I've been asked to project my voice many times.
When I love you this way.
When I've been doing talks socially, and I think that's something that throws me, because when I'm in the courtroom, nobody ever says project your voice.
Because your voice is projected already. Because you're fighting for justice, right? So,
but it just seems that when I'm in in a different space, it's not as projected. Perhaps I need to learn to project. Anyway.
I think you're a fantastic chameleon. That's what it is. So basically, you just adapt yourself to, the situation. The situation. In court, you need to be a little bit, aggressive, even a tad bit, depending on what the other side's, what's going on with the other side. If you don't, if you're not assertive and loud, then they could crush you, even for that, because the other side will feed off body language, right? So that's probably what it is. But generally speaking, when I find myself in spaces where I want to be posh, elegant, and very well spoken, where I have filler words that I use. It's a problem. I am working on it, especially now with this podcast. People are highlighting that, so that's the feedback I get. So every time I'm being intentional about not using filler words, what I do is I invoke my inner Jacqueline.
Oh, do you? Oh, wow.
I do.
I didn't know that.
I do.
That's interesting. Thank you very much. That's so lovely of you to say.
So,
I hadn't realised that.
So I suppose what I'm trying to say is being unshakable doesn't mean your voice is necessarily the loudest at every point in time. You can be gentle and soft-spoken and still very, very loud in your countenance. So Jacqueline never comes across as timid, and yet she's soft-spoken. Do you see what I mean?
I do hear that from my clients. Yes, they do say to me, "Oh my goodness, you really persuaded the judge, and I thought that you would need to be very loud and aggressive with it, but you're not. You just sit back and say what you need to say very effectively and eloquently." And one guy said to me, "And the judge was listening to you." And I thought, yes, of course the judge is going to listen to me. That's why I'm here, to speak to the judge. But he said, the judge was listening to you in such a way which made me think,
was he surprised?
I think that people sometimes think, particularly in the immigration tribunals, that you might need to shout and come across as really aggressive, because the immigration clients forgetting perhaps the tier one and investors that have a lot of money who are professionals and have come from their countries and they're very self-assured. But I'm talking about some of them who are asylum seekers and they're not so confident and all of that. And when they meet you in court and you speak softly and all of that, they're not entirely sure that that's who they want, because they feel as though you need to speak really loudly and be aggressive. And I don't speak aggressively.
No, you don't.
I don't feel
not even a little bit. No.
I just, you're very able. You do your job day in, day out. I've been a practicing barrister for 27 years, so I know the law, and all I need to do is read the facts of the case and be familiar, and then I know how to apply the law to the circumstances that have occurred. And so it's a conversation with the judge.
Yeah,
so
and that's what it is. It's advocacy, right? It's
Absolutely.
about, yeah.
So,
interpretation of the law.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I just have a conversation with the judge. If the judge asks me, well, what about when that happened? And I just respond because I'm familiar with the case.
Yeah.
So that's all the judge wants to know.
9 out of 10, that's literally everything. Everything else is kind of secondary.
You don't need to shout.
Yeah.
And so in the criminal courts, there is a bit more cutthroat. It's more of a cutthroat environment. And I did that for many years at the start of my career. So I was initially a criminal barrister and sort of represented defendants up and down the country.
How did you find that?
Well, that was good. I found it really, I found it a learning experience as a young barrister starting off in this profession, just getting to experience a different range of courts, different defendants, different sorts of criminal offences. And so you would sometimes, of course, see the same clients over and over because they were persistent offenders. I remember a time when there were these defendants going around in Cambridgeshire committing arson. So the same defendants would come back over and over, and you just knew them. You knew their stories. You just knew, oh, not you again. And you just sort of make jokes, and you even speak the same way as them. Do they
make the jokes with you?
They do, because they just say, oh, the law, how are you, the law? And you just start chatting like that, like you're familiar with each other, which you are at this stage. But that was interesting. And, there were people as well who shoplifted regularly, and it was because of being homeless and because of their home situations, and you just got to understand where they were coming from. And so you understood that.
Did you ever get tempted to take it beyond the law and maybe try and get them some help, maybe?
Yes, and you always would do that.
Always?
I remember, yes, you would always want to go that extra way, just extra bit to assist. Of course, you're being instructed by solicitors, so you have to do things properly through solicitors. So you would feed back to solicitors, this is what I think is going on in the situation. Perhaps this is something that could assist them. You might be in a position where you're doing a plea mitigation, so you might want a family or social circumstances report to be prepared in order for your sentencing and your plea mitigation to be more effective and powerful when you're explaining this person's situation and their background and what motivates them, because the probation officer is doing a good job, but I think that sometimes they just touch on the surface of what's happening. And so you need something that really brings it home to the court why this is going on a persistent level. Yeah. And then they can understand, and that would mitigate the sentencing. So what did happen on one occasion with a defendant was that they had been accused of switching labels and just scanning. They were working in, I think it was Wilkinson in Wood Green. I remember this vaguely. I say vaguely because I remember it was a Wilkinson in Wood Green, but I can't remember the details exactly. But they'd been charged with just sort of scanning things incorrectly for somebody they knew.
Yeah, so swapping £100 for £30 or something like that.
Yes, they were doing that, and the camera had picked that up. Now, I actually went to that store and spoke to the store supervisor because I wanted to understand what training they were given, what they would, whether, because his defense was he didn't actually know this person and he wasn't doing any such thing. And I want to see the CCTV evidence, I want to see the camera to see what it actually had captured. And really, it just showed that he was scanning, and it didn't show he was doing anything. There was no forensic evidence except for a person's interpretation of
what he was doing.
That. So I then also got some feedback as to how they would train their staff when they first started, and whether it was in-depth training, whether it was sufficient training for them. And we were able to build a case that he was not doing what he was accused of doing, and there was just a bit of carelessness there, and he hadn't been sufficiently trained, and we got him off. So I do sometimes go and look into these matters.
Did you have a gut feel, though? Did you have a gut feel about his...
I did, and I sometimes, even if I don't have a gut feel, I just want to do a little bit extra just to see.
Well, get them back on the, maybe also put them back on the right path. Do you think maybe when you extend kindness to these people, I mean, some criminals are, do you know what I mean? Probably beyond redemption. And that's why we have custodial sentences for life. But in these cases, I'm sure sometimes, does your spirit just lead you to kindness with regard to one person, you're defending, to say, okay, maybe if they did this in this way, or maybe if I push them towards getting counseling or doing this or that, they might eventually be a better person.
Yes, and of course, as I say, you would, in most cases where it's a persistent offender, and you would typically, when you're first starting, have your instructions from the same solicitor's firm. So it'll be the same clients that are coming through chambers. So you will know them. And so, as I say, you'll become
what have you done this time?
These terms where you're so friendly, it just seems really laughable that you are the lawyer and that they are the defendant.
Criminals for life. That's what they do for a living. That's kind of sad, though.
Well, but it is the circumstances sometimes that some people find themselves in, and you will give advice in a very jokey and casual way, not judgmental, and then it would be up to them whether they sort of take up the advice. You might go on the phone to, the housing services, or try and do things to help them, just do that extra. But essentially, I think that people will need to want to help themselves for anything to change, because you may make the phone calls and secure somewhere for them, and then they'll be back on the streets, and they'll be,
people are who they are, though, right?
Because it's not come from them. And most of the time, there's a lot more going on. Some of them say, oh, I was in foster care from the moment I was little, and I don't know my mum and dad, and nobody loves me, and they say they just feel, and that really is what drives their whole life, because their mindset is, I'm not loved. I was never loved by my biological parents, so I'm no good.
Yeah.
And that's, imagine when that is how you see yourself. It's fundamental. A lot of us take it for granted because we come from homes where we know so much love from our mums and dads and our family, extended family.
Yeah, and we've had good influences all around, so outside of the family, obviously people we interact with on a daily basis, that would help, because I don't think anybody is beyond being influence. I think I've told you about a period in my life where I felt like maybe the people I was hanging around with at the time might have had a little bit of an influence.
So you have peer pressure, that definitely happens.
Exactly. And then maybe it's up to you to redefine what your purpose is. So being unshakable actually is a lifestyle, but is a choice as well, to an extent, right? So we could all say we are the products of, good or bad. So this bad thing happened, and therefore this is why I'm like this. Or we could go the other way and say, as a result of this bad thing, actually, I'm going to stand firm. I'm going to do this in this way instead, right?
Yeah, but I think it's for that individual to rewire their thinking, to say, I choose to do this. I choose to make my future this, rather than being the same cycle of coming back to court, stealing, being homeless. And that's something that the individual needs to do for themselves. And so you find that, unfortunately, a lot of the defendants I'm referring to from many years ago were in that difficult place where they hadn't come out of that cycle. And of course now I'm no longer doing criminal cases. I specialise in immigration and human rights.
And now there's a new set of problems.
It's very, very different.
Very different
environment.
Yeah. Generally, in summing it up, so unshakable is a state of mind. We've actually proved this. So by conclusion, because it's an individual thing, so it can't be taught. That's why it's in the mind. So I think from everything you've described, and it's something that's instilled within you. Obviously, Connor and Izzy are probably going to end up being unshakable, which they are, by virtue of the fact that,
by virtue of just that knowledge and trust
the
and
influence
faith
of you,
that they are
loved,
wonderfully and beautifully made, which I think every human being in this planet should have a sense of being wonderfully and beautifully made, because we all are. And our God, whoever you perceive your God to be, has made you beautifully and wonderfully. And so just having that faith and the trust that everything will work out, and even when things are going badly, and you just don't understand what's going to happen next, how things will unfold, you need to have that certainty of who you are, and have faith that everything will work out in the end. Of course, don't just sit back and let things unravel. You've got to, you've also got to keep going.
Steer destiny in the right direction as far as you can.
Find out what, in terms of, when you say destiny, so if it's a career path or profession or whatever it is, you've got to make a clear choice of what it is you want to do, and then lean into it with all of your being and spirit, and then trust in God.
So we're speaking it into existence, aren't we? So we're speaking this podcast to be to be global and helpful and insightful.
Yes, and I absolutely want to congratulate you for what you're doing. I think it's amazing that you've taken the Unshakable brand to this next level, to do the podcasts and interview people and allow them to share their stories, because I believe we're all connected in our life experiences and what's going on, and it's lovely to hear one person's experiences and their stories, and something they say might resonate for you, and you might think, oh, that's a lesson I've learned.
Absolutely.
Today from hearing that. So that's a good message. So wonderful thing you're doing.
Thank you so much
for allowing us to come on this.
Well, Jacqueline, I think I have amazing support. So without the support of my nearest and dearest, and including you, especially you actually, because I know I've chewed your ear off with this podcast for months now.
Not so much, but you've got a lot of support from.
I have. I've been blessed in this way, which is why I think it's God-led. So I think this is what we need to do, because people need this kind of safe space. I know we're announcing this to the WWW, but there's still something quite safe about the way we are bringing it forth, having a conversation about it. I've really enjoyed this. I'm really, really glad that I did it as well. And I'm really humbled that you indulge me.
Thank you. Thanks so
Taking
much.
time out of your busy schedule.
No, there's anytime. And anytime you call on me, I will be there.
Thank you.
Just to have
She means that as well.
Just to have a coffee.
Yes.
Or to go, have a dinner at our local Turkish restaurant or wherever it is. Yes, I'm very happy.
Thank you. I hope you guys have friends like Jacqueline. I'm really blessed with the nature of the friends that I have, and especially the ones that I can learn from. So I do learn a lot from Jacqueline, which is why I wanted you guys to meet her on a one-to-one. So we have done a podcast in the past together, and that was really good. But there's something special about this one because it was intimate and individual. So the other thing I'm learning not to do, I'm unlearning, is taking notes. So I've been told off by Monica, who is the social media consultant, and she said, Sally, I really need to give you feedback about this thing you do where you take notes when your guest is speaking. That's not very good. So this is me pointing out the errors of my ways.
I actually think it's a good thing.
I would have thought so. I think I said to her, I think it's just my training.
Yeah.
So I would imagine if you were speaking
just writing throughout the interview.
No, taking notes of the important
things.
It's
relevant.
Yeah, so today I haven't done that, and I've had to rely solely on my brain and memory. But fortunately, Jacqueline has been talking about very interesting things and things that resonate with my spirit. So I actually haven't quite needed to do the notes, but I did have my pen handy waiting. And Monica, I hope you're happy.
Well, I think that taking notes at the relevant points is a good thing because it just helps you to memorize it and refer to it later. As long as you're not taking notes, copious notes throughout the interview.
I think what she was referring to was a situation where I did spend a considerable amount of time, but that's because I was talking to Moni and she was talking and it was so interesting, and I didn't want to interrupt her flow, but I didn't want to lose what she was saying as well. Yeah. So it ended up going on for a few minutes, and I could see how viewers might find it a little bit distracting or not distracting, but maybe.
But I suppose what you could also do is when you view the podcast, the recording that you've done before it goes live, is to play it over and over if that is something that you want to revisit. But if it's in the context of the interview as it's unfolding, you want to be able to ask questions on the back of what the person just said.
So I think I'll try it both ways. Maybe something in the middle, Monica. I hope we can reach some kind of compromise on this, yeah?
Yeah, and be true to yourself and do what works for you.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I haven't taken any notes, so I can't refer to anything that I haven't mentioned. But I think I've covered everything, unless there's something else you'd like to add.
No, I just want to say thank you so much for having this wonderful opportunity that's out there now, and you invite your guests into this space and you talk about things that mean something to them. And we're all in a safe space because, as you said, although it's been, shared live, it is a safe space where we can talk about feelings, life stories, life experiences, and we're all, as human beings, interconnected. These are not just one person's stories that nobody else can also experience. And if
relatable.
It's relatable. And I think that it's so useful to have this. There's so much value.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you think so. I'm glad that I've come out of my little space, because obviously I've been recording in my makeshift studio at home.
And that's a lovely space.
It's a lovely space. Well, it's also nice to, I'm not a tree. So it's nice to get up and go somewhere. And, you know, in light of the fact that we're not 9 to 5 in at the moment, it's good to get out of the house, because otherwise I go for a run, I come back, I go to Tesco, I cook for Kare, I'm partial empty nester, I still have one to go, cook a meal, maybe, you know, do some editing, blah, blah. And then, you know, the whole day is gone and I've done absolutely nothing else with my life. So this is a chance to have human interaction and not just by phone. So I'm really grateful. Thank you for booking the room out in the Middle Temple.
That's okay. You're very welcome.
Share some
Anytime.
photos.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Much love, Sally.
Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been insightful. I hope you've picked up some keywords and some key messages. Obviously, keep in touch. If you have any questions, please circle back. In the meantime, subscribe, like, share. You know how it works. Unshakable is a state of mind. Take your state of mind with you everywhere you go. Be unshakable. Be in truth with yourself. Love yourself. Thank you. Until next time, or see you next week even. Bye.
Bye.